Cool, let's go ahead and get started. So I don't have a ton planned here. I thought what might be cool was to, is to really just go over Backpack, go over XNFTs, maybe explain them a little bit, maybe show a bit of the app, walk through some stuff, show how to get set up, and maybe show a little bit about the APIs and SDKs so that when people are ready to start building these things, they have a point of reference that might be useful for them. So yeah, let's go ahead and I guess get started with all of that. Okay, so hey everyone, my name's Armani. I am a founder of Coral. So Coral is a new, I guess, I don't know what you call it, new company, new tech company, new Web3 company, new crypto company. I don't know, it's new, it's a company, there's people, they're awesome people. But we're building a lot of stuff. We're probably most well known for at this point for Anchor. So Anchor is the smart contract framework that a lot of folks use on Solana, open source, public good. And most recently, we have been working on this new protocol that we're calling XNFTs or executable NFTs. And XNFTs, I say protocol, but it's kind of like a weird protocol in the sense that there's like a lot of different moving components to it. And I could kind of like talk a little bit about each of them. But there's like kind of, there's a smart contract framework, which is built on top of Metaplex. And it's like a pretty thin layer on top of Metaplex that it's used to add some new features, track ownership, things like that. And then there's this kind of new UI framework that we built that we called React NFT that I can talk about later. And it looks like React, it feels like React, it is React, you have hooks, you have all the normal browser APIs. The main difference is that you don't have access to the DOM. And whenever you want to render something to a UI, then you need to use the component framework. And we can talk a bit about that later. So there's the smart contract, there's like the development or the developer tooling with the React framework. And then kind of lastly, there's like the host environment, which is going to be kind of like the applications that run these XNFTs. And kind of as the first kind of application that we built, the first thing we've done is we built this new type of wallet. And it's a wallet insofar as it looks like a wallet, it feels like a wallet, it has private keys like a wallet. But the real big difference is that Backpack is built for these executable NFTs. And so, it's probably easiest just maybe take a quick look at the app. Let's see, I have my dev build on, so let's see if this works. So it's a browser extension. We have a mobile app. And so, it looks like a wallet. We have your token accounts. You can see your transaction history. You can send tokens to people. You have your NFTs, right? So you can take a look at look and share your NFTs. And if you got a swapper, all the normal stuff that you would see in every other wallet. But the most important tab here really is this grid view. So here you'll see all these icons. They look a lot like, they look exactly like your Android or iOS app screen. But the big difference here is that each one of these icons is itself, it not only is an application, but it's a decentralized tokenized application. So what exactly does that mean? I guess I can get back to that later, but maybe it's just kind of interesting to take a look at it. So this is like the DeGods XNFT. So you can open the DeGods XNFT and you have this bespoke kind of custom user experience for DeGods, right? It looks a lot like their website, but it's all native in the wallet. And a couple things to note here. First thing to note is that, you see these staked DeGods that I have. And what's interesting about this is that in every other wallet, basically, you wouldn't see these NFTs because they're staked. So you have this kind of challenging user experience problem in Web3 currently. Whenever you use applications, you usually end up either minting new assets like governance tokens or something like that, or you end up staking your assets or locking them up in a contract or something. And so these assets are disappearing from your wallet. And so kind of one compelling kind of use case for these executable NFTs is to make it really convenient to interpret and use all these protocols so that you can see all your assets inside of a single user interface. So here we have our DeGods. You can stake and unstake your DeGods directly from Backpack. And also what's interesting about this is that the way this app is built, this is not an iframe. This is actually built with a new component framework that's rendered natively inside of a browser sandbox, kind of isolated for this for this application, but it's built and rendered inside of Backpack. So we have all these things like kind of tab navigators, stack navigators. We have like the ability to sign transactions. Ignore this UI, we're styling this at the moment. You can sign transactions from the host and kind of do everything that you would normally do inside of an application with a connection provided to the application. So you don't have to run your own RPC infrastructure. You can kind of just build these mini programs or these mini apps in the form of an executable NFT. And so this is kind of like the first kind of use case of the technology. There's kind of some more stuff that we're going to do in the future that's more kind of along the lines of dynamic JPEGs. I won't kind of go into that today. But really what we're focusing on, at first at least, is going to be all about these applications or these mini apps inside of the wallet. But what's kind of cool about this from the perspective of the developer is that, well, okay, not only do you get like a distribution platform via Backpack, not only do you get this like very nice development framework that handles a lot of the heavy lifting, like having like tab navigators and push navigators with animations and kind of a native look and feel for all the apps, because it's all using the same UI framework. But you also have ownership over the code. So you can imagine, if you were to get distribution on like this Dead Gods app right here, or this Dead Gods XNFT, then well, as a developer, you could actually get liquidity on that hard work, right? So you can actually sell that XNFT to a buyer, right? Somebody might acquire it. And if it's really built in a truly Web3 way, where you have this like serverless architecture where you're using like smart contracts, maybe some like indexing service, really all you have is this application, right? And you have distribution on this application. So a buyer might come along and think, oh, I want to like take the fees on this and send them to my wallet instead, or I might want to like have some ad revenue, or I might want to change some features inside of this wallet, or excuse me, inside of this XNFT. And so you can actually, this is where the tokenization becomes interesting, is that, well, you can buy and sell these XNFTs and kind of get liquidity as a developer. So you have this new like form of monetization. This is kind of like the starting point for the story here. And I think there's a lot of like interesting stuff that we can do with XNFTs. You can imagine things like restricting, you might want the ability to have people install the NFT, right? So like, you have this experience with like, Magic Eden or OpenSea, where you can kind of see, or you can buy and sell these NFTs, but you can't really bring other people's NFTs into your wallet, right? But that's something you would definitely want to do for executable NFTs, right? You would want, like, as a developer, you might own the Dead Gods XNFT, but you would still want other people to use it, right? You want distribution. You want people to be using your protocol. So you could not give them your XNFT. You could do that, but you could also, like, renting is maybe the wrong word, borrowing is maybe the wrong word, but you can let them install it, right? You can let them use the application so that they can have it inside of their wallet for that convenience, right? And then you can like open up your NFT daily and use it or whatever. And so I think that's like a pretty interesting feature that kind of like allows us to build this platform, or this new kind of like very coherent like user experience, where we have all of the Web3 kind of experiences in a single place. And so this is kind of like where we are, at least where we're starting the story. So that's a little bit about kind of at a high level, at least the background. Now might be a good time to stop and like answer questions before I go further. If anybody in the audience wants to ask a question. Nope, great. I will keep going on then. So that's a little bit about Backpack. That's a little bit about XNFTs. I could go ahead and actually run through kind of the expected, actually before I go through like installing and stuff, it's probably worth pointing out we have this documentation here. So, the next question is going to be, well, like, how do you actually build these, XNFTs, right? And so we have that, if you go to docs.xnft.gg, this is like very, very, rudimentary. I wrote this and like, like 10 o'clock at night or something. Like it was, we're working on it. There's a lot of glass here, but you get the basic idea. You can understand the developer experience. So, we have, this React XNFT framework. and we have React components, and it looks and it feels a lot like React. The only real difference is that you import from this npm package. So you have views, you have text components. You can kind of get a little overview here. Namely, we have this core component section, which will show you kind of all the entire component library. So we have views, we have text fields for user input. You can render images, SVGs, buttons, lists, scroll bars, activity indicators, and iframes. And so yeah, this documentation exists. It's not great. We're working on it. All this stuff is like in heavy development. So if you are inside the Discord, ask questions in there, talk about it. There's a ton of glass. So if you are joining it, make sure that you are prepared for the glass, and it'll be like the early days of Solana, where there's not a lot of documentation and a lot of bad error messages. But that's what makes it fun. So yeah, that's a little bit about the documentation. Now might be a good time to let's go ahead and go through like the expected install flow. So here we have the Discord. If you're in the Discord, yeah.
We have a question, sorry. Kind of what you were just talking about from Adrian in the chat, asking if the current rendering for UI is just supporting 2D or also 3D formats.
Oh, great question. So right now it's this component framework supports 2D, but if you want 3D, you can do that with an iframe. And so that's something I'll talk a bit about once I get to like the development part of this. But maybe to like fast forward there very quickly, we basically have like two ways to build these things. The simple thing to do, which is not like super encouraged, but you can do it just for convenience, and is you could simply have an iframe that renders like your normal web app, and then you would have access to all of the backpack APIs via the injected provider on the window object. And so instead of this like view component here, you can have just an iframe component, and then you can have access to all of the browser APIs that you would normally use. You'd have like WebGL and Unity and or whatever 3D stuff that you wanted to do. You can do it inside of the XNFT. So yeah, the answer is use an iframe. For most applications, I don't recommend that, but if you have something that the framework can't support, then that is available for you.
Awesome. And we have one more question from someone in the Chicago office here too.
Yeah, so you were showing that viewport in the browser extension, and as well you mentioned that you guys would have mobile. So both of those are pretty similar formats in terms of screen size and like sort of the layout, where it's like sort of portrait and vertical. Is there any plan to support like full screen desktop or anything like that?
Yep. There's full screen desktop. The answer to your question is yes. The main thing blocking the release of that feature is like we just need to make the UI responsive. So right now it's kind of assuming these dimensions, at least the host UI, like the swapper and stuff. But yeah, to answer your question, we will 100% have full screen desktop. We will probably have a native desktop app at some point. So yeah, you should write your XNFTs to be responsive and to assume any screen size.
Awesome. And then we have one more asking if are XNFTs rendered to DOM natively on phones as well? And are you doing sandboxing with iframes?
Yep. So, without going into too many of the details, the basic way that the sandboxing works is you have like the host kind of browser environment that then injects in a bunch of sandbox iframes. And then a bunch of code is rendered inside of those iframes. But kind of like the weird thing about the iframes is that, well, they don't actually render anything. If you were to actually go to like the iframe inside the browser, you would just see a blank screen. And so we have this protocol for communicating view rendering from the sandbox iframes to the host, which basically just is like some serialized data that then the host reads, does some security checks on, and then renders it natively. And when I say natively, I really just mean inside of the same rendering framework of the host environment. And so on mobile, the XNFTs are rendered in the same way that they're rendered in the extension, which is to say that they're rendered in the same way that's the native, quote unquote native, if you're using React Native, mobile app would be showing UI components.
Awesome. I think that's it for questions right now. If you want to keep going here.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks for the questions, by the way. I think that makes it a lot more engaging. Hopefully I can answer questions while I'm here. So yeah, that's kind of the framework. It's a little bit about Backpack. That's a little bit about XNFTs. I thought it'd be kind of nice just to like kind of set up the app from scratch and kind of show a bit about what it looks like to kind of get your hands dirty developing these things. So if you're inside the Discord, we currently have a closed Discord. DM me for an invite. We're trying to keep it like as small as possible, just so that like we can be responsive to feedback and to make sure people have a reasonably like graceful experience. So if you request access and you say we're full or something, it's for a good reason, but hopefully we're growing this like as fast as possible as we squash bugs and add features and things like that. But we have this builds channel. Basically every PR or every merchant and master will basically trickle down into here. I probably should say the caveat that like you should not like download anything unless you absolutely know what you're doing. So if you're not a developer and you're not like very security conscious, like stay away from this channel and don't click on any links, and be careful out there in the Web3 world. There's a lot of scammers out there. But this exists. If you know what you're doing, feel free to use it. So you can kind of download. You can download the build, and you're given this kind of like build directory, and you can install it into your browser directly. So right now, basically the way that looks is you go into your extensions, you would manage your extensions, and you can simply just like drag and drop it in. Hopefully we'll have like a better way of doing this soon that's a little more kind of convenient, but this is kind of the workflow as of right now. And then you can basically just pin it and you're ready to go. So now we have kind of the latest build here. So it's the latest build from 12:16 p.m. today. So maybe there's like a 50% probability that this is like has some like catastrophic bug. So bear with me here. So so this is, let's onboard the new wallet. It's like typical onboarding screen. Now we have backpack, we have a new wallet, and we are ready to go. So that's the install. And now let's kind of bring up a text editor. So what I'm going to do is bring up a text editor. And what I'm also going to do is bring up a terminal. Unfortunately, you can't see the other screen, so it's going to get a little crowded here. So let's just do this for now. So let's go into new directory. And what we have here is we have this quick start repository. So if you go to Coral XYZ, XNFT-quick start, we have this repo that you can simply just fork /clone to get started. So if you open up, if you take a look at the package.json, there's basically two dependencies in here that are important. So we have this XNFT CLI, and we have the React XNFT framework. Both of them are just using the latest framework because it's being developed so actively right now. It's not worth like pinning an actual version. So yeah, just go here and you can, let's go ahead and clone it. So let's make a new directory, Hxro, and you can just run Git Clone and go into the repo, run yarn. And I guess while we're waiting for that, let's go ahead and actually open this up. So we can go to Coral, we can go to, where's the hero? XNFT quick start, and you can actually open up the entry points here. So, okay, so we have the code installed. Before actually talking about the actual code, let's go ahead and just run this real quick. So we have this developer environment that will basically enable hot reloading of the app. And if we go ahead and open up the extension and go to the XNFT tab, you'll notice this simulator app. So if we open this up, we have this nice kind of, we have this blank canvas that we can use. So we can actually, pop the window out. So this is convenient for developing because you don't want an extension if you're, hacking away. And we have this nice window view. But what's kind of nice about all this is, well, if you have, if you're running inside the simulator, then you can get hot reloading. So you can like change the text color. And if this works the way it's supposed to work, it should reload. Yay, and it worked. Awesome. Live demos are never fun. But yeah, that's kind of the idea there. So we're inside of the simulator, and you have this kind of like live coding environment. So that's a bit about getting started. It's a little bit about running, and maybe before before moving forward, I can stop again for some more questions. No questions. Great. I can do no questions. Cool. So let's go ahead and check out the entry point here. So here is the quick start. If you go into the index file, you'll see we have this render function. So it looks a lot like a normal React app, but we kind of call React XNFT and we render what is inside of it. You can actually ignore this anchor DOM stuff. Is actually going to be removed. But what's important here is the application. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So we can ignore this. This is unnecessary for the purposes of this app. Delete this. And yeah, here we have a normal component. We have views, we have text, and this is, looks like a normal React app. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit about the framework. We can be like a bit ambitious and actually write some code here. And why not? Let's be ambitious. Let's do it for the hero team, because we like the hero team. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and cheat and open up another editor, because I don't actually know the APIs by heart, because I have a peanut brain. But yeah, let's go ahead and use some of the tab navigators. So I'm going to go ahead and just ramble a bit while I open up a new file to copy paste some code. So backpack examples, program library, packages, source, and we have the file open. All right, cool. All right, so first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna add Tab Navigator. Tab Navigators are very convenient. They're used for like basically every application. So we'll import this tab component, remove this text field, and we can go ahead and get started. So let's go ahead and create a tab navigator. So as a reminder, the tab navigator is basically going to be like this bottom bar here that we're gonna create. So let's go ahead and create a tab navigator, and we can give some options. The options are basically just going to be used for like determining like icons and things of that nature. So let's go ahead and do that, and then add some screens. So a tab screen, give it a name. Let's call it hero. Let's go ahead and give it a component. I'll explain all this later. I am failing to write code and explain things at the same time, so let's just call this the hero component. And then yeah, that seems reasonable. That's one component, and then let's have another component. So it's hero, and then we'll call this Gunny. Let's do Rob and Gunny, that's more fun. And then we'll create some components.
Rob's smiling in the back row, Armani.
Nice. The Rob component. I wish I knew Rob's favorite color. That'd be great. Rob, what's your favorite color?
Blue.
Blue? All right. So we'll create a little view, we'll give it a background color, and then we'll give some text and we'll say, hey Rob, that seems reasonable. Capitalize the R for punctuation so that our English teachers are happy. And then let's go ahead and make the Gunny component. And I don't know what Gunny's favorite color is, but like I think I kind of, he seems like a pink guy, right? So let's go ahead and let's give him pink. And then, give him, say, hey Gunny, and let's go ahead and finish up with these options. And like theoretically, there should be an icon here. I don't know if this icon's actually required. I forgot, but let's give it a shot. And we have some errors. So this is where things start getting fun. So why is this thing erroring? Yeah, let's see. Let's go ahead. Oh, that seems like an error. This also seems like an error. All right, things are happening. Cool. So now we have a blank screen because we have more errors. This is why you don't do live demos, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Why is this failing? Where's my terminal? Error messages are nice. Tab bar icon. I see. I see the problem because I have to use this other API, the icon component. Cool, let's do that. And that seems maybe better. Ah, I see. Nope, this is actually a more convoluted API than I anticipated. So that is what we're supposed to do. Is that correct? Ah, things are happening. Cool. So let's go ahead and return this. Nope, still having some issues. Turn route, tab bar icon, tab bar icon. Apologize to everybody in YouTube. Actually, YouTube, you can just like fast forward, so it's actually like way better. So I apologize to everybody in the office watching me do this. Maybe this is reasonable. Maybe this is supposed to work. Let's do text. Ah, okay, so this is actually working the way I wanted to work. Wonderful. Okay, so things are happening. So let's go ahead and give this a height. Fill up the screen. It's really my editor that's lying to me because my code is perfect, because my code is always perfect. And yay, it's working. Okay, cool. So let's give it some height so that we have some. That work? Ah, great. Okay, cool. Awesome. Now let's go ahead and take it a step further. And what happens when I click? Nope. I see. Let's name this Rob, Gunny, and things are happening. Okay, great. Man, live streaming coding is hard. All right, cool. Things are working. All right, so next thing we want to do is let's go ahead and instead check the route. So what do we want to do? We want to do if route.name Rob, turn Rob, else turn Gunny. Okay. All right, cool. Now we have our components. All right. That was a little painful, but you got to see, I guess, what it's like. So this is our application. We built this Tab Navigator. So now you can kind of like switch screens between these two different views where we have this Rob component and this Gunny component. So that's kind of like the set of tooling, kind of the developer experience. You get this kind of like live hot reloading kind of experience directly inside of Backpack, where then you can use this React XNFT component framework to kind of build your applications. There's a lot of stuff that I haven't shown in here. There's a lot more of the components. There's a lot of the APIs. So specifically, there is this window.xnft API that you can use to like sign transactions. And then that'll kind of pop up and bring a confirmed transaction page into the application. But I defer you to the documentation to kind of explore those APIs on your own to kind of save you from the pain of watching me, fail to live code an application. But yeah, beyond that, I think that's like a pretty decent stopping point for the live coding section. I'm happy to stop here and answer any questions. I kind of expect everybody to be watching this to be confused. So yeah, if there's any questions, now would be a great time.
How composable are you planning to make XNFTs in Backpack? Will they be composable specifically with the Raindrop protocol, game asset standard, and Cupcake protocol sprinkles? Oh yeah, great question.
So very excited about both Raindrops and Cupcake. Actually, fun fact, Andrew Long, the Raindrops CTO, is sitting. Well, he's supposed to be sitting right next to me, but he's not in the seat at the moment. But yeah, that is definitely. Planning on making it as composable as possible. Would love to kind of double click on that and ask, what do you mean about composability? Because there's different ways of being composable. Is this at the smart contract layer? Is it at the UI layer? Is it something else? What exactly do you mean by that?
Hey, Armani, this is Adrian. So I was just wondering specifically more in terms of, I guess, the UI and then specifically the application kind of layer and how those things kind of might interface together with kind of like games or different applications that kind of move beyond potentially finance, right? And specifically with Raindrops, that's like built on top of the Metaplex token standard. So I was just kind of wondering, because you're also building on top of Metaplex, how those two token standards fit together, and then how interoperable and how composable are those two standards kind of together, so you can kind of be having like very seamless interoperable information between those.
Not entirely sure I fully understand the question, but I can try to answer it. So at the smart contract layer, I think they're composable insofar as like the smart contracts work with each other. I'm not super familiar with the specifics of the way raindrops works on chain, so I can't comment super in depth there. But I can comment at the UI layer. So there is definitely the intention that we will be able to like send messages back and forth between these different XNFTs. So if you're like the raindrops kind of XNFT, you'll be able to like send and receive information from like different games. So like kind of I was talking with Andrew about this yesterday actually, which is like it'd be really cool if like the raindrops XNFT was kind of like your control center to like kind of use and interact with a lot of your games across different, you know, whether they're XNFTs or whether they're on chain or whatever, however they're built. So yeah, the intention is for all this to be composable, both at the UI and at the smart contract layer, so that you can, you know, do CPI on chain or do message passing off chain inside of Backpack. But yeah, I think there's a lot of like killer use cases there. And the fact that both raindrops and Backpack are built on Metaplex, or I should say XNFTs are built on Metaplex, doesn't necessarily prevent interoperability between the two. And I think it should be relatively straightforward to support that.
Okay, so just like a follow-up to then clarify. So is raindrops like necessarily built on a higher level than like XNFTs, or would it be kind of like evenly built on top of like kind of the Metaplex standard? Like,
Yeah.
layers
So
of like wrapping essentially going on.
yeah, totally. So the way you can think about it is actually I might have just like let's see if I have a draw IO actually. This would be convenient. Yeah, I kind of do. Oh, I do. Nice, cool. Let's see how up to date this is. So kind of the way XNFTs are weird because it's like this, a lot of it's on chain, a lot of it's off chain. But the way it's built basically is, so here, like the combination of these boxes, so you have SPL token account, SPL mint account, token metadata, and master edition. This is like Metaplex, right? And so what we've done is really on top of this, and so owning this basically defines ownership of the XNFT. And the XNFT kind of points, you know, via the URI to some off-chain storage, and this off-chain storage has, you know, some blob of data that has some code attached to it, and normally it also has some image attached to it, right? You would have like your JPEG in here. So you have these like kind of two important pieces of metadata, and so kind of Backpack or any XNFT system will basically just like do your normal fetch for all the token accounts, do your normal Metaplex dance, go to Arweave and get the blob, right? But instead of just rendering the JPEG, you also get this React code, and you could run the React code. But in addition to all of this, right? So the Metaplex defines the ownership. We have this very thin wrapper basically that allows you to have this one-to-many relationship that defines kind of like an install, or however you want to define it, or rent or whatever, that allows kind of you to have customers as a developer that are then using your code. So, you know, when you download or mint or, you know, install an XNFT, you're basically creating these accounts that allows them to show up in your wallet. And so, and raindrops is like kind of is similar, right? So instead of these XNFT accounts, you would have like these raindrops, you would have like a raindrops account, right? But maybe the important thing to note is that like the XNFT protocol is really defining ownership and usage over the code, right? It's not really telling people like what that code is. It's not telling people how to communicate with that code. It's just saying, all right, you have a bundle of code, who owns the code and who can use that code. And kind of everything else kind of falls out of that. So you'd have like the raindrops XNFT that kind of defines your raindrops code, right? You know, when you would open up the raindrops XNFT, that code would then be calling and using and reading and interpreting a totally different protocol. And it doesn't matter if that raindrops protocol is Metaplex. It doesn't matter if it's an Ethereum protocol. It doesn't matter if it's Uniswap. It doesn't matter whatever it is. It can do whatever it wants. And so the fact that both of them use Metaplex is kind of irrelevant because this is just like an arbitrary code bundle that might be owned by somebody, but the Raindrops protocol will be kind of doing whatever it is that it wants to do. I hope that answers your question.
Thanks.
Hi, my name's Andy. I have a quick question. Are there plans for example, like XNFT to integrate with Phantom or anything, or is it like a proprietary like backpack thing?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. So I think like we eventually want to get to that point. I think it would be, the ball would be kind of like in their court to like show that they wanted to like do it. Basically, we're mostly just thinking about building interesting things as fast as possible. And so like we didn't want to like wait for other teams to like build stuff because like historically that's kind of just like hasn't worked. So yeah, we just like kind of built backpack kind of because we had to. But yeah, the intention at least is for it to be a protocol that anybody can use. But right now it's just a backpack specific thing. And kind of like we're exploring the design space and like rapidly building and rapidly integrating with teams. And then kind of like once we really figure out like what the product is, then kind of at that point we can like shift to like standardization conversations and figure out how to like make it a more widespread protocol. But kind of to start, at least it's a backpack specific thing.
Gotcha. Yeah, that answered my question. Thank you.
Great. I think that's all for questions on our end here right now.
Cool. Well, yeah, that's like basically all I had planned. Thank you everybody for showing up and listening to me ramble. I hope this was productive and useful. And thank you to everybody who's like actually developing on this stuff and chewing the glass. It's like tough to use new developer frameworks when they first come out. So all the feedback is like definitely greatly appreciated. So yeah, if that's it, that's also it from me.
Sorry, our internet was a little bit spotty here. Thank you so much. This was great. Really appreciate you taking the time and appreciate everyone attending and for all of your questions here.
Cool. Thanks everyone. Bye.
Thank you.